Well, good evening, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here with all of you and to share some wonderful poetry, particularly from our two featured poets. I want to begin with a few quotes, as I normally do, to get us thinking about writing and inspiration. And by that way, Derek Walcott reminds us that we write in the language that our grandmothers loved us.
Love
Like that.
it.
Theodore Rothke calls poetry a steady storm of connections.
Wow.
Leonard Cohen once said, poetry is just the evidence of life. If your life is burning well, poetry is just the ash.
Lovely.
And another favorite poet of mine, Adrienne Rich, in her beautiful meditation on what poetry does, wrote, poetry can break open locked chambers of possibility, restore numbed zones of feeling, and recharge desire.
So true.
And lastly, Ross Gay has said, poems are communicated ultimately body to body, voice to ear, heart to heart, even if those hearts are not next to one another in space or time, it makes them so. That's certainly true tonight with our Massachusetts and Oregon poets joined here together through the magic of Zoom. And I'll introduce both poets because they're going to alternate 10 minutes each in 4 segments, much like our trendsetters, Wendy and Vivian did a while back. Ayelet Amittay is a poet and psychiatric nurse practitioner in Oregon. Her first poem book, The Eating Knife, will be published in 2025 by Fernwood Press. Her poems appear or are forthcoming in Gulf Coast, the Journal of the American Medical Association, Tupelo Quarterly, and others. She has received fellowships from the Yiddish Book Center and the Martha's Vineyard Institute of Creative Writing. Gray Held is a recipient of an NEA Fellowship in Creative Writing and the winner of the 2019 Future Cycle Poetry Book Prize. 3 books of his poetry have been published: Two Star General, Brick Road Poetry Press, 2012, Spilled Milk, WordPress, 2013, and Workaday, Future Cycle Press, 2019. He holds a BS from MIT and an MFA from the Tyler School of Art at Temple University. Gray is also a literary activist who has received 6 Mass Cultural Council LCC grants for public projects that connect contemporary poets with wider audiences. Through his efforts, the city of Newton received a Mass Development Commonwealth Places grant for Make Poetry Concrete, which has resulted in dozens of poems being stamped into the concrete of newly constructed sidewalks throughout Newton's village centers. He teaches a weekly poetry workshop, Poetry Roundtable, via Zoom, and also worked privately with poets to help them hone their craft. Gray is also a visual artist who collaborates with his talented wife, Leslie, in creating public art throughout Newton, on doors, on pianos, on Jersey barriers, on electrical boxes, and on the sides of buildings. And for now, please welcome Ayelet.
Thanks so much, Richard, for inviting me to read and for being the guardian of this reading series for decades now, making space for us here. Thank you so much. And thanks to Gray for reading with me, whose poems I've admired for many years. And thanks to all of you for coming. I know so many of you from being around Barbara's table years and years and years ago, and that has really shaped my life in a lot of ways. I'm grateful to each one of you and to your writing. Gray and I are going to alternate. Hopefully there's some mirroring happening between our poems. So I'm going to read 5 poems, and then Gray will read, and then I'll read, and then Gray will read. These poems come from my first book, which is coming out next year. It's called The Eating Knife, and it's about the story of Abraham and Isaac and how that story reflects in my own family history. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of context for where these poems are coming from. Right. What's that? Oh, okay. How to build an altar. Leave it room to breathe. Tender the tinder bed. Snap twigs to kindling. Strike the wick awake. Bracken, bramble, imagine the wood with a fire in its heart. Animals flee with their mouths open. A son bound as eggshell binds a yoke whole and golden, unafraid. A father may slake his knife, but a son can still live if he imagines the broken branches whole again, lets the timbers turn back into trees. Self-portrait as Isaac. I was a youth, yearling, black bristling my lip. When you took the knife, I became still. Thought and wonder peeled away like burnt bark, raw underneath. A pair of eyes, just seeing, and breath, and a pulse. Inside my death, the possible permanence of you, like time moving backward into the time when I was half a genetic halo, half a heap of petals, sleeping inside your body at the edge of God.
Wow.
The voice of God. In the first grade, I kneel behind a trash can heaped with crepe paper flames. The branches shudder. I am God's voice. I am God's call for burnt offerings, the scent of smoking flesh. Mount Moriah unspools its summit road down the middle of the reading rug. Abraham climbs, leading God's burnt offering by the hand. The span between the knife and Isaac's chest is a form of closeness. The ram like an afterthought. Enough testing now, let us eat. My father shudders in the small attic room of his sickness. My father stamps on the voices in his head, but they keep burning. Soon he will come downstairs. The angel will not stay his hand. This next poem is called The Eating Knife. And the Hebrew word for the knife that Abraham carries is ha-ma'achelet, which literally means a knife that you use to eat with. Bloodless meat on the cutting board. I don't like cooking or horror films. I want to heal the tender center of the wound just by thinking it. A knife has no ear but cheek, no hand but handle, no eye but spine. I sharpened my femur until one edge would slice you, left one edge dull as a horizon. No foot but heel, no chest but belly. I won't imagine the muscle needed to stab her and then yourself. Won't ask what song you let loose when you cut yourself open. And this last one in this first set of 5 is called I Visit the State Hospital. And I think I wrote this in Barbara's workshop. Can tell me if it's familiar. I visit the state hospital. The metal detector is a long electric sigh, a door without the rationale of walls. It cries at the smallest thing. So I am told to walk through without shoes, like wading into a river. Guards with their blunt, blind hands pat down my arms and legs for what they imagine I have hidden. Food, toothbrush. I'm not thinking about a knife, the reason why he's here. Soon he'll see me face to face. Seconds will click into place like gun parts. I will start smiling before they walk him in. When he comes through the door, I am prepared.
Mm. Wow.
All right, Gray, take it away.
I feel transported to the Holy Land. It's just beautiful. So now to a retirement home. Object lesson: black boats. Help me put on those black boats, she says, meaning her ugly orthotics custom made. These beleaguered feet, once perambulating masterpieces, traveling in fashionable stilettos, barely trudging now. Fragile, can't stand on her own. Little body of trimmers and missteps come home to roost. Toes are awkward, untrainable cousins to our fingery agility. After nearly a century of being corseted by leather, her toes have restructured their calcium, their catacombs of marrow. I kneel, coddle her left foot. 5 independent digits, now one compressed flock of flesh. I tender my empathy to purple veined ankles, sad arches, nail beds beveled down. Help me put on those black boats, she'd said. Black boats evoke Sharon, ferrying the souls of the recently deceased to the afterlife. Her feet are cold from the heart's reduced acoustics. I Velcro the left strap. I Velcro the right. From assisted living via ambulance to St. Mary's. In the first floor hospital chapel, you can give a dime, a quarter, or whatever to light a candle that may last an hour or two at best, while physicians, radiologists, and interns in purple scrubs walk by. Then you can take the elevator to the 4th floor, sit in a cramped room, a hard chaired affair, designed for hard conversations with the kind of doctor who brokers final bargains down to one. My brother and I are prepped to make the deal, but my sister isn't. So as the dim sconce flickers, Dr. Sankar takes my sister's hands in his antiseptic hands, practiced in aiding and abetting the acceptance of the inevitable. I don't hear what he says to her because I'm distracted by my artificially sweetened Coke, surrendering slowly, going flat, lifeless, but still conforming to the bodily shape of the paper cup that holds it. As my chest rises, falls with each breath, I think about angels and feel a tightness in my back where my wings would be.
Mm. Wow.
Sitting on my sister's deck the day before Mom dies. Inches from the leaf-strewn slumbering rubber doormat, a small golden brown toad, calm, squat, goddess of leap and swiftness, little Buddha whose oversized eyes a child could love. Why aren't you moving? Have you lost your lunge? With my thumb, I nudge the toad's knobby back, hoping its hinged hip will twitch into flawless vaulting. I goad that toad again. Giddy up, I say. It doesn't budge. Fly at her burial. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. Here comes that goddamn fly again, pestering the air, demeaning these proceedings with its little syllable of troubled buzz, distracting me when I should be crying with my whole body, the way babies wail, their breath catching. Shoo, I think softly, as the fly lassos back, settles on my coat sleeve, prickling the fibers with its filament legs, before pondering slow and somber off the cuff onto my wrist, the tingling emerald preeminence of its wings all aglisten, like some divine spark to flick away. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. Back again, the self-same fly, derailing my bereavement. Shoo again, bug off. Off it goes to revel around the rabbi's words. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. Flashback number 1, at Huguenot Road Starbucks with my brother and sister. How dare you write this crap about our dad, my brother shouts, as he slams his fist on the aluminum table, such that drips of espresso jitter over the lip of my flummoxed cup. On and on he persists in coffee grinding my words to fit his filter. The barista glares at us. My sister whispers, shush, everyone can hear. If I'd written buttery sunsets or an apple picking ladder leaned against a speechless tree, if I'd composed my poems in broad daylight on a happy veranda, if I'd let myself be sentenced to silence in the courtroom of decorum, if I'd been free to take liberties and have misgivings and imaginings, if my growth ring on our family tree had been perfectly concentric with the others. Object lesson, Shiva gift from Harry and David's. Oh, to be cared for like these gala apples, handpicked by Ecuadorian workers from orchards in Savannah were cared for, polished and 2-ply cardboard boxed for transport to my sister's door. But I can't linger too long over these happy apples because the Shiva guests will be arriving. Soon here at my sister's house. I've put out a wheel of Gouda, I shout, and jalapeno cheddar in a tub. Is that enough? Yes, my sister answers. And where should I put the cut glass fruit bowl? In the company of my family, I feel like a grape ripped from the bunch. Ever since my published poems broke the family's golden rule, what happens in the family stays in the family. Such gatherings have morphed into strange estrangement. I put out toothpicks and silverware. Good job, my sister says. Today, I'll keep the landscape of my life small and square, like a cocktail napkin. That's all I can manage. The spoon speaks. Patiently, I reside on the napkin beside my next of kin, the knife. He's the divisive one, the steely, prideful slicer, whose vengeance I sometimes make excuses for. I'm the happy, placid one, my shiny oval scoop gathering panoramas and penumbras, flipping them upside down as I cargo little specimens of the spectrum from the sumptuous surround to my stainless face. The knife is thought to date back 2 million years ago in Africa. I'm the new kid on the block, a friend of humanity since ancient Egypt, stirring whirlwinds into steeping tea, making forays from soup or porridge to the lips, sketching deliciousness upon the tawdry tongue, that royal ruler of the cave that swallows all. Thank you.
All right. The next few poems, I was really struck reading Gray's poems by his beautiful use of insects and animals. So I thought I would read a few poems with insects and animals in them. So this poem is called Minor God. This crab could be the oracle. See how his eye stalks are portents, and his ancient mouth, the mandibles click like clock gears. He holds time in his mouth, and it opens as if to pour tenderly the contents of the future onto the sand that is dark with rain. The shine of his shell is a looking pool where the sky can see its face. This crab, with its leg jousts, claw joints, and articulations, knows something about being broken open, knows that escape happens sideways, scuttling under rocks where everything else is starfish and seaweed and barnacle blasted to stone and trying to hold on. Who spreads the land upon the water. Let me tell you about God's and my argument about sand. How come it works so hard to disperse? I'm talking about the sand in your shoes, in your pant cuffs. You shake out your towel, but there's sand in the car when you get home. And then what good is that? It's not like some sandy beaches are going to spring up in my car, in my backyard, like sand will pollinate and flower into tropical beaches of soft pink sand. The sift and grit of it won't colonize the planet. So what's sand's point then? And God said, sand isn't sentient. Sand doesn't try to spread like that. If you just stay off the beach, then the sand would stay put. The places you've been are changed by you. I grind sand from rocks, God said. Don't you believe I could keep the sand in one place if I needed to? I don't know what you need, God. Understanding isn't something that comes easy to me. At night, I worry the sand from under my nails. I heat milk for cocoa, and then the sand in my teeth turns gritty. I'm trying to say, the sand is glory, sugar, and glare. The sand kisses grit rock, licks formations slick as footprints in the sand. God, I've seen your sky divided. That was an attempt at a poetic form where every second line ends in sand. I don't know. We'll see how that one pans out.
Worked out well.
Calves Drumlin Farm. From the fenced edge, I watch them stir the bare shoulders of pasture. I want to be with them, want to stand in the warm press of many. For the first time, these calves must bow their heads to feed, their lips loosening grass, not the urge of their mothers' bodies. There was a time I knew how to draw love from my mother, how to relieve the pressure under her skin by taking. And this is the last poem. It's called Landscape with Animated Deer. Now winter, thorny boughs, the cold to stand against, everything visible as breath, near breaking. And this herd, their bodies spooled wire and lights, the rigid bow of their heads just hammers home how useless grazing is to them in their empty frames. Even so, their faces seem familiar and kind, and I see myself in the tight wire armature, studded with lights that blink and flicker into wind. They shed their pale glow over the lawn, casting themselves against the house and shrubs with a selfless animal grace, as when, in a pre-dawn blur years gone, I walked the spine of a hill in the thaw of another winter's death and saw a deer step to the edge of the wood. I was lit by that flare, the electric blood. Thank you.
Gorgeous. Wow.
Back home after the funeral, I'm stumbling through the super Stop and Shop parking lot, seeking my lost car with the bum left headlight. Nasty scratch on the passenger door and superficial damage on the bumper from when I backed up without forethought against a hydrant. I'm loath to hit the emergency button on my key fob, make the horn shout, "You idiot." So I put down my grocery bag, close my eyes, lower myself by a rope into the rote moves I gave the steering wheel, hoping some tinge of muscle memory might give a hint as to which asphalt aisle to beg for mercy. Lord, just give me one more spring to enter the backyard tool shed's faint dark, take in the rich, rank smells of mulch, the effusive fumes from the tank I tilt to fill the mower's throat. Let me breathe life back into the flat tires of my wintered over bike, anoint the chain's stiff links with oil. I promise to gorge myself on chores, fix the spigot strip, patch sidewalk cracks, replace the split picket on the rickety fence, tighten the loose lip of the brass latch, scrub the musty beach chair webbing, fill holes dug by snakes and moles in the curved berm. Let the crows come back, hawking their caw, caw, caw on power lines. Let tribes of tiny ants line up troops by the driveway. Let maple pollen wallow all over my windshield. I'll take it. My mother speaks to me in a dream. At 2, you drove us crazy, endlessly reciting Dr. Seuss's one fish, two fish, three fish, blue fish. At 3, we took you to temple and you cried and cried as if all the weighty grief of the Jewish people was on your shoulders. Now you so quaintly say poetry is your religion. Well, we don't want it in our house. Object lesson, my mother's will. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. Billy Preston. To Gray, I leave his bronze Abraham Lincoln piggy bank and the rattle of 60s vintage pennies inside. I leave to him the mothballed kid-sized sweater I knitted him in a time that was fleeced with affection. I leave him my last fresca and a lone pink pistachio shell out of which a poet might make a big deal. I bequeath one snake hole from the love-starved yard, an acorn from the two-trunked oak that split when the weight of divergence got too much, the sound of a spider breathing in the basement, some rat bait, the dog bite, baits of Beethoven's Fifth. I name Gray the sole heir to my loving husband's box of tools, hatchet, bolt cutter, pliers, crowbar to pry open what's long been left unsaid, wrench that's learned how to self-adjust. Object lesson, Amaryllis bulb. It doesn't require love or outside approval for it to sink its Medusa roots down into the pebble-filled bowl, or to eke out its first green tongue for a taste of sunlight on our sill. As I scrape dinner plates and suds tumblers, I get to watch the staunch stem hoisting its own rejoicing, then positing a little minaret atop the tip, determined to pry itself open into a throb of blossoming, jet-propelled entirely by a self-sufficiency I envy. elevator ride with my brother. The elevator always seeks out the floor of the fire and sexton. Awkward being with him, like when elevator doors close and it's just the two of us descending into circumstance, and me fretting exactly how far from him to stand under the unforgiving grid of ceiling lights, their dumbed down humming. I stare at the panel of illuminated numbers for the floors. No words spoken because there's too much to say. Plus, there's nothing for hands to accomplish after the up button's been pushed. When we were kids, strangers would ask, "Are you twins?" And he'd smile, saying, "We're a year, a month, a week, and a day apart," as if life had chosen one of everything from a hotel breakfast buffet. When the silence gets too tough, I press L for lobby again and think of the double meaning of lobby, as in lobbying for a cause. Can't we be together in the before the rift kind of way, like when the two of us carried our Uncle Irving's brass-handled coffin from the entrance of the temple down the gold-carpeted aisle to the pulpit, or like when working on a jigsaw puzzle at the beach house, fitting a pale piece of cloud into sky. On the anniversary of her death, I light the yahrzeit candle, a fist-sized diameter of paraffin in a glassy citadel, recite a prayer, Baruch atah Adonai, may the beauty of her life abide among us, Amen. For 24 hours, I get to be the lighthouse keeper, watching the crook-shanked wick embrace the conflagration. A wisp of smoke, a thin gray ponytail. Through the night into the dawn, the flame shivers and the wick's glowing tip, a pomegranate seed stuck between my teeth. I set a place for her in my heart, the knife beside the spoon, the fork, the doubled over napkin. Sabbath dinners would end with her licking her thumb and pointer, pressing them like bookends to the wick. She said her fingers were asbestos. I believed her.
Mm.
Object lesson Kodachrome. Whose childhood is this in this little rectangle over the chair? Charles Wright. Dad snapped us by the poolside. Perhaps he had a hunch this happy, splashing, shallow-ended artifact might be crucial in the future when nothing clicked. That I could savor this unposed moment, so unlike that other photo. Our grinning sinews become marionette strings to the standard etiquette of the professional photographer's slew of muted lights and the silver-tongued reflectors that say cheese. In this candid photo, smiles are authentic. Mom's so young, so Botticelli beautiful. The fringed umbrellas flap their scallops in her direction to complement her perfect swan dive of a smile, while I sit atop her shoulders, my legs straddling her neck, feet dangle down, my blue swimsuit, my blonde bangs Mom cropped equator straight. Now I'm twice the age Mom's captured at. She could be a child of mine, a child I could love wholeheartedly, despite anything that child could ever say or do, despite anything. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. It occurs to me that Psalms are still being written, yours included. You know, In the beginning was the Word, and the Word is still happening. Thank you very much. And now let's hear from some other people in this virtual room. How about Steve Nickman?
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. Oh, I'm not muted anymore, am I?
No, you're good.
Okay, good. Thank you, Ayelet. Thank you. Thank you, Gray, so much. When I closed the office where I saw children for therapy, I took some of the objects with me that helped us connect. And for a few years, they were sitting in a closet. And now I've been looking at them and they've been telling me to write poems. Surprise. You don't know what to do with me, what my purpose is. So I give you something to do. A little wooden cylinder with a conical top sits loosely in a wooden cube. Make the round piece come out without touching it. I hand you the cube. You look at me like I'm crazy. You say it's impossible. I tell you, you have the power inside you. You're puzzled. What do you have inside? I ask. Bones, blood, brain, you say. I point to your chest. You say lungs. You purse your lips, blow into the crevice. The cylinder pops out, bops you on the nose. A shower of laughing.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Up next, we have Wendy Drexler.
Hi, everyone. Ayelet and Gray, those were stunning poems, really harrowing, gorgeous, so much beautiful music and deep feeling. And I'm just very, very moved. So thank you. Your work is amazing. And Gray, it's great to hear the new work you've been doing. I knew you were writing these poems and yeah, they're fantastic. Well, I just changed what I was going to read because of Gray's poem about the fly. So I have a fly poem too. It was written at workshop. Barbara gave it up in Maine at Sandy Weissman's place. It's called The Fly. He loves my coffee mug, buzzes above it, hovers, lands on the lip, sidles inside. That fly, I'm pretty sure it was the one I saw fucking another fly on the ceiling last night. Now my mother's in my ear. Flies carry disease. So I cover the top of my mug with the poem I've been writing before getting up to dampen a paper towel, wipe his germs from the lip. I'm sorry I've had to use vulgar language in discussing the fly, who is now my fly, I suppose, and who is leaving me and my mug alone for the time being. Admittedly, I've tried to kill him more than once because of his devotion to me and my coffee, his curiosity full-throttled, his drone barreling dart and swoop, his lust for touch, blazing, brimming, and the two of us smack dab in the middle of this very room with work to be done, getting away with this one and only fitful little lucky life.
Fabulous. Wow. Thank you. Up next, we have Carla Schwartz.
We
You're
can't hear
muted.
Carla.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, what a night of poetry. Everybody's poems were so amazing. and it's hard for me to figure out what to read, but I think I'm going to read a poem called Fear, Clearing Heavy Snow After Precipitous Cold. I cut the 3-inch thick frozen crust into blocks. I hold above my head and hurl each one like a soccer ball. If only an outfielder stood for the pass. I'm listening to an audiobook, Fear, and I fear for my country as Woodward quotes a president who incites national fear, plots murder. I smash an ice brick, the pieces scatter across a slick table of snow ice. Foot after foot, I progress, carry out walkways that intersect like Broadway and East 9th, where years back a big fire raged. My fingers burn with a cold no amount of shaking can disperse. My whole body, a city of sinew, biceps, triceps, and the lower lumbar, my Bowery. I bend down again, keep going like the Hudson until the temperature drops and I form a skim. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Up next, David Miller.
Oh ho. Hi everyone. Ayelet and Gray. Thank you. That was really, between the two of you, mutually enriching. It was quite wonderful. This is a fairly short poem, and the only intro is I'll just say, keep in mind the very simple multiplication problem. 3 times 13, you can work it out. 39 syllables. I don't say I love you to you many times. I mean, repeating it without pause or gasp until my breath expires. If I were 18, that'd be so romantic. What count in seconds of available air might my lungs hold for such a burble? 13. I tried it twice. 39 syllables worth of nonstop affection. If there were stanzas with only those 3 little words, but all those many syllables, how many would I have recited since we met? What number have I left? Thanks.
Nice, nice. Thank you. Gemme.
Thank you. What an evening. Thank you, Ayelet and Gray. Beautiful poetry. Amazing. This is called The Blue Lobster. I scuttle wreckage through sea level swells. Father says, that shell is not my black shell. Mother tells him that color doesn't matter. I can't pretend my color isn't radical. By the looks of me, I'm sky, I'm sea. I wonder if God has played a trick on me. Curse of my birth, I'm always in a flux. I can't disappear in mortared muck. I tread on what's left of the continental shelf. My segregated body is my stigmata self. Through my wild moat, my pincers enlist sea star, mussels, urchin, beneath the surface. Not every being needs legit limbs for service. Nothing breaks me. I am unbroken blueness. Thank you.
And our penultimate poet, Jonathan Aibel.
This has been a great evening, and what a great open mic. And I have to admit, Pam's made me, I wanted to pull out my lobster poem, but too late now. My poem's called Questing. Be very quiet. Throw away cookie wrappers. Wipe countertops as if no one lived here. No crumbs. Just my messy room, toys, books akimbo, any trace anywhere else might break, my mother into thunderstorms. Wandering hooks, lost in untended greens, far from home, hope, my trail eaten by birds. I climb trees so high, birds invite me into nests, share spare feathers, teach me to wing the pathless, sky over the house roof, defy labyrinths, defeat harpies, search for talisman to break her curse, leave no footprints.
Wow. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Jonathan. And I will close this section with a poem that I just wrote and hasn't been workshopped or anything like that. I've never read it out loud, but here goes. Like Jonathan, I'm out on a limb here. Listening to Cone concert in Cone 50 years after the release of the album. What Keith Jarrett, tired, hungry, did on a partially tuned grand piano, not the grand piano called for by the 18-year-old promoter in her first concert gig. In the minutes before midnight, after almost not going through with it, the creative urge coming through just as it was needed, burning into the mundane mortal armament to where angels wait in their impatient glory to praise what is precisely at risk and hinging on downfall all along, asking not to be terrified, but coming up short, because this love for what remains good, remains sound, that is playable in the heat, yet to be released, is not more than what these hands, rolling like a fingery version of the sea, tectonic, resplendently resound down through the decades, a horn of plenty jamming my ears, with what I love and made love with, imperfect you, while he came up with what, though imperfect, perfectly drew out what the slumber of reason brings forth, the rise of what blood, when the tingle of touch ignites the presence of all that can be, forever and ever. Oh, what an evening. Oh, holy night. This has been just fantastic. From coast to coast, we've got the most.
You're doing.
Hey, Richard, can you unspotlight yourself so we can see? I want to see everyone.
If you look at the gallery view, you can do it yourself.
Yeah, I was trying. Sorry, I don't know why I can't get there.
Yeah. So
I
Richard,
did-
did
I
you
did
hear
try to modestly unspotlight myself.
Oh, no, you were wonderful. It's good to have you.
Yeah,
Great.
great. Your poems were just so moving. Really wonderful to hear you read these.
Yeah.
Other comments?
Then I've read these poems. It's the first time I've read these poems publicly, so thank you.
Yeah.
And the way you use images that speak to your emotional state. I mean, there were so many, but even like the lights in the elevator, I can't remember what the adjective was, but that you're really talking about the relationship. You do that so many times and in such beautiful ways.
Thanks.
And I yell at the way you're using this biblical theme of Abraham and Isaac to talk about trauma and history and your life. I mean, I really look forward to your book. It's going to be just amazing.
So striking.
Yeah. You
Yes.
haven't lost your edge, to make a terrible pun.
I love the power of your voice, Ayelet, to start a poem with, let me tell you about God, and argument about sin. I mean, what a bold way to start. So wonderful. Can't turn away from a beginning like that.
Ayelet, I loved when you were the voice of God in the children's play or the whatever it was. Just so incredible. And I also just have been absent, you know, in this community for quite a long time. And I was just really struck by how I still know you both, you know, in terms of the story, the arc of both of your stories, and what has transpired since I have been around is truly incredible and visceral. And, you know, just as time passes, there's so much grieving and coming to terms. And thank you both for taking us with you on that ongoing journey. Just incredible. I'm very, very moved.
Ayelet, how did you settle on this powerful religious voice?
Great question.
Yeah, my rabbi invited me to do a Dvar Torah for Rosh Hashanah, which is when we read that particular chapter of Genesis. So it started with a poem from Abraham's point of view to sort of fulfill that request, and then I took a class with Sabrina Oramark, who's a really amazing writer about obsession, and my topic for the obsession class was story. So I started writing just all the perspectives I could think of on that story, and the book sort of grew out of that.
It has the power of obsession.
Yeah, she's a great teacher and a great writer. It's really fantastic.
What's her name again?
I'll put it in the chat. Sabrina Oramark. She wrote Happily, which is a memoir in fairy tales. It's really great. She's a poet too.
Ayelet, do any of your poems deal with Sarah's point of view? Because she has a big silence in that section of the Torah.
There's one for her. Yeah. Gray, I've always remembered your poem about your mother and the penny taffy being pulled to the limit. So it was really nice to get this series of poems and to remember her from that other poem and to connect across time. That felt really satisfying.
Remember that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah, I have my love-hate relationship with the formality of at least the temple that I grew up with, and so it's been I had hoped for more rabbinical support for healing the wound in the family from the rabbi, but that did not happen. It's complicated. I know. Well, I don't want to go into it, but I have this complicated relationship with my religion right now. I think we all do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The words right out of my mouth. It's a whole big club we're all in.
Yeah.
And yet you're both writing in such deeply spiritual ways. It's absolutely beautiful to hear your voices tonight. I had to say I'm so moved to see everyone. Ayelet, it's been far too long, and I just so loved hearing your voice in Gray every time I hear you read, and then to hear everyone else as well. And to see Robin again. I know I was saying all kinds of lovely things about you early on, Robin, when you couldn't even hear any of it. But I hope you felt
You can say them again, Carol. That's fine with me. I don't mind.
I had to say when you were speaking to Gray and Ayelet about their work and how moved you were by their lines, and I was thinking, oh yeah, this is Robin, and she's able to look at people's poems and the emotion that you bring to us all about your response. And I always love that. I remember your poem about the blue bowls when you first came to Barbara's workshop, and we were like, it was just tears and
Carol,
lovely.
that was 25 years ago.
I know it. I remember every one of them. And when you come to the table with poets, I think you don't just leave each other as you know, some sort of classmate. You actually do develop a really deep feeling for those that you work with, that you share your work with, because these are really our souls. And I think tonight we've heard that from Ayelet and Gray, and we've heard from everyone here. And now I'm in tears, Robin, which you've always done to me as well. So it's fantastic and so lovely to see everyone.
I will also just quickly say that both Ayelet and Gray, that I found that these poems really did speak to each other across the reading. It was exceptional, and it made Richard. It sounds like you've been doing this a bit, and I look forward to more where the intermingling of subject. And did you? My question was, did you guys talk to each other about what you were going to read, or is it merely amazing coincidence that they connected in these ways?
Just a fluke.
It's I think it's coincidence, but I think there might be more behind that.
Okay, that's fair.
I feel like the word reckoning is very
Ooh.
important for this reading, that you were each reckoning with such profound themes in different ways, but I think the poems really spoke to each other about the work for the insight you were getting. Gray, I especially appreciate hearing these poems. I know you've been working on them for a while, and they're hard to write. So
Yes,
I'm glad to hear those. Ayelet, I'm less familiar with how much you've been working since, you know, we're not around Barbara's table anymore, but I'm sure your work has been a journey as well.
You know, Clara, it's been, you know, it's been a whole process writing these poems, and, you know, they start in anger sometimes, but it's been a healing. Poetry is such a healing process. You know, it's, I don't know whether I could have gotten to this point of acceptance without writing it.
I think too, it's on a spiritual level. And both of you had poems that were in this way of telling, was very spiritual to me. I mean, it was beautiful. I thought, both of you, anyways, but I think there's a spirituality to healing and happiness and reckoning. I mean, what a good word, Clara. I agree with you. So thank you for all of that. It was great.